The stars looked different from space. Lieutenant Una Park had learned this truth during her first week aboard the GSS Horizon. And even after 3 years of service, she still found herself staring out the windows whenever she had a quiet moment. Down on Earth, stars twinkled and danced because of the atmosphere. Up here, they were steady points of light, cold, distant, beautiful in a way that made her chest feel tight. But today, Una had no time for stargazing. Today was the day the Velhari came. She stood in the main corridor of the Academy training grounds, checking her uniform for the 5th time. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her boots were polished until she could see her reflection in them. Everything had to be perfect. The Velhari were not known for their patience or their forgiveness. Commander Taiho Kim walked toward her with heavy steps. He was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and eyes that had seen too many battles. When he spoke, his voice was calm but serious. "The delegation will arrive in 20 minutes, he said. "Are the cadets ready?" "Yes, sir," Una replied. They have been briefed on Velhari customs. No direct eye contact for more than 3 seconds. No sudden movements. No showing of teeth. Taiho nodded slowly. "Good, but there is something else you should know. Ambassador Krath is bringing his offspring." Una blinked. This was unusual. The Velhari were protective of their young in ways that bordered on obsessive. They rarely brought cubs off their homeworld, and never to meet with species they did not fully trust. "A cub?" she asked. "Why would he bring a cub to a military station?" "I do not know," Taiho admitted. "It could be a sign of trust. Or it could be a test. Either way, we must be careful. If anything happens to that cub, the consequences would be severe." Una understood. The Velhari were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had been conquering worlds for 10,000 years before humans even discovered fire. Their alliance with Earth was new and fragile, built on trade agreements and mutual caution. One wrong move could shatter everything. 20 minutes later, the docking bay doors opened, and Una got her first look at the Velhari in person. They were massive. The adults stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick fur that ranged from deep brown to silver white. Their faces were somewhere between a wolf and a bear, with long snouts filled with teeth that could crush bone. Yellow eyes glowed with intelligence and barely contained aggression. Claws the length of kitchen knives clicked against the metal floor as they walked. Ambassador Krath led the group. He was the largest of them all, with fur the color of midnight and scars that crossed his face in pale lines. He wore ceremonial armor that gleamed under the station lights, and when he moved, every muscle spoke of barely contained power. But it was the cub that caught Una's attention. Morath was small compared to the adults, roughly the size of a large dog. His fur was silver, almost white, and his eyes were a lighter shade of yellow than his father's. He moved with the clumsy energy of youth, sniffing at everything, his tail swishing back and forth. Despite the danger that all Velhari represented, there was something almost cute about him. Una reminded herself that even a cub could kill a human with one swipe of those claws. "Welcome to the GSS Horizon," Commander Taiho said, stepping forward with a formal bow. "The United Earth Government is honored by your presence, Ambassador Krath." Krath studied him for a long moment. His nostrils flared as he took in the scents of the station. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "Humans smell strange," he said. "Like meat, but also like something else. Something I cannot name." The tension in the room grew thick. Several cadets shifted nervously. Una stepped forward, her heart beating fast but her face calm. "Perhaps it is hope, Ambassador," she said. "Humans are an optimistic species. We tend to believe that things will work out for the best." Prath turned his yellow eyes toward her. For a moment, She felt like prey caught in the gaze of a predator. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to run, to hide, to do anything except stand there under that terrible attention. But she did not move. She met his eyes for exactly 3 seconds, then looked slightly to the side, showing respect without fear. Something shifted in Krath's expression. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. Optimism, he repeated. My people call it foolishness. But perhaps there is value in foolishness. We shall see. The tour began. Yuna led the delegation through the training grounds, explaining each section with careful precision. The cadets demonstrated combat techniques, weapon systems, and survival skills. The Volhari watched everything with sharp attention, occasionally rumbling comments to each other in their own language. Morheth, however, was not interested in military demonstrations. He kept wandering away from the group, sniffing at walls and chasing small maintenance drones that scurried across the floor. His handlers, 2 younger Volhari with brown fur, kept trying to guide him back, but the cub was persistent. Cadet Hemin Choi walked beside Yuna, her voice low. Lieutenant, the cub is going to be a problem. He is curious about everything. I noticed, Yuna replied. Keep an eye on him. If he wanders too far, alert me immediately. Hemin nodded. She was young, barely 20, with short black hair and quick eyes. She had graduated top of her class from Seoul's Aerospace Academy, and Yuna saw great potential in her. The tour continued to the observation deck, a massive room with transparent walls that offered a stunning view of Earth below. The blue and white planet hung in the darkness, beautiful and fragile. Krath stood before the window, his reflection ghostly against the stars. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke, his voice softer than before. My grandfather conquered 12 worlds, he said. He burned cities and broke armies. He was the greatest warrior my people have ever known. But he never saw anything like this. He gestured toward Earth. A world of water and life. So small, so vulnerable. And yet, from this tiny planet, you humans have reached out to touch the stars. Yuna stood beside him. We had to, she said. Our world cannot last forever. We knew that if we stayed on Earth, we would eventually die with it. So we learned to fly. Krath made a sound that might have been approval. Survival instinct. This my people understand. But there is something else about humans. Something that confuses us. What is that? You are soft, Krath said. You do not have claws or fangs. You cannot run fast or see in the dark. By every measure, you should be prey. And yet, you are not. You are something else. Something we have never encountered before. Before Yuna could respond, a warning alarm filled the air. Red lights began flashing. The station shuddered beneath their feet. What is happening? Krath demanded, his claws extending automatically. Commander Taiho's voice came over the intercom. Microasteroid impact on the outer hull. No structural damage, but emergency protocols are engaging. All personnel remain calm. The blast doors began to close, sealing off sections of the station to prevent potential decompression. It was standard procedure. Nothing to worry about. But in the chaos of flashing lights and closing doors, nobody noticed the small silver shape that darted through a narrowing gap. Chasing a maintenance drone that had caught his attention. Morath was gone. The silence lasted only 3 seconds. Then, Krath's roar shook the observation deck like thunder. Morath! The ambassador spun around, his yellow eyes searching frantically. His fur stood up along his spine, making him look even larger than before. Where is my son? Where is he? The 2 brown-furred handlers looked at each other with panic in their eyes. They had been watching the cub. They had been right next to him. But the blast doors had closed so fast, and the cub had moved so quickly, and now he was gone. He went through there, one of them said, pointing at a sealed blast door with a trembling claw. He was chasing something. A small machine. "Open this door," Kraft demanded. He slammed his fist against the metal, leaving a dent. "Open it now." Una stepped forward, her heart racing. "Ambassador, the doors are sealed by emergency protocol. We cannot open them until the system confirms there is no threat to the station." Kraft turned on her. In that moment, she saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before in any creature. It was not anger. It was fear. Pure, desperate fear. "If anything happens to my son," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "I will personally tear this station apart. I will destroy every human I can reach. And then I will return to my homeworld and tell my people that humans cannot be trusted. Your alliance will end. Your species will be marked as enemies of the Velhari Dominion." The threat hung in the air like poison. Una knew he meant every word. Among the Velhari, cubs were sacred. They had few children, and each one was treated as the most precious thing in the universe. For a Velhari father, losing a cub was worse than death. "I understand," Una said, keeping her voice calm. "And I give you my word, Ambassador. We will find Morith. We will bring him back to you safely." "Words are cheap," Krath snarled. "Then watch my actions." Una turned to her cadets, who stood in a nervous cluster near the window. They were young, most of them barely out of training. But they were all she had. "Listen carefully," she said. "We are going to search this station and find the ambassador's cub. You will split into teams of 2. Check every corridor, every room, every storage closet. Use your scanners to track heat signatures." Cadet Hansol Lee raised his hand. He was tall and thin, with a serious face and careful eyes. "Lieutenant, what do we do if we find him?" "The cub is dangerous. Non-lethal protocols only," Una replied. "Stun weapons set to lowest setting, but do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Our goal is to locate him and report back to me. I will handle the actual retrieval." Cadet Yunji Wang spoke up. She was the team's xenobiology specialist, a quiet woman with glasses and a mind that never stopped working. "Lieutenant, I need to tell you something important. Velhari cubs become very dangerous when they are scared. Morith is young, but he can still kill an adult human with one bite. And if he feels cornered, his instincts will take over. He will fight to survive." Una nodded. "I understand. That is why we need to find him quickly, before his fear grows worse." The emergency protocols finally ended, and the blast doors began to open. Una led her team through the corridors, following the path Morith had taken. It was not hard to find. The cub had left marks everywhere he went. Deep scratches covered the walls where he had run. Overturned carts lay scattered across the floor. A maintenance worker sat against a wall, his face white with shock, pointing down the corridor with a shaking finger. "It went that way," he whispered. "Big teeth. So many teeth." They continued forward, deeper into the station. The corridors became narrower here, leading into the maintenance sections where few people went. The lights were dimmer, and the air smelled of oil and recycled oxygen. Hyman checked her scanner. "I am picking up a heat signature ahead. It is moving fast, heading toward the upper levels." "The observation deck," Yunji said grimly. "The big one, with the glass ceiling. Why would he go there?" Hansel asked. Unji explained what she knew about Velhari behavior. On their homeworld, cubs sought high ground when they were frightened. It was instinct, built into their blood over millions of years of evolution. The highest place was the safest place. From there, they could see threats coming from any direction. "Morith is scared," she said. "He does not know where he is. He does not recognize any smells or sounds. So he is doing what his body tells him to do. He is climbing." They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Scratch marks led in all directions, as if Morath had circled around several times before choosing a path. Una studied the marks, trying to understand the cub's thinking. "He is confused," she said. "He wants to go up, but he does not know how. He keeps running into dead ends." Her communicator buzzed. Commander Taiho's voice came through, tight with tension. "Lieutenant Park, status report. We are tracking the cub, sir. He's heading toward the main observation deck. Ambassador Krath is demanding to join the search. I am having trouble keeping him calm." Una closed her eyes for a moment. Having Krath in the corridors would make everything more complicated. His presence would make the cadets nervous, and his fear might push him to do something dangerous. "Tell him we are close," she said. "Tell him his son will be safe." "I promise. I hope you can keep that promise, Lieutenant." So did she. They found more signs of Morath's passage as they climbed toward the observation deck. A door had been torn from its hinges. A water pipe had been punctured, creating a pool on the floor. At one point, they found blood, and Una's heart stopped until she realized it came from a small wound on the cub's paw, probably caused by sharp metal. "He is hurt," she said. "That will make him more scared. And more dangerous," Yunji added quietly. They reached the main observation deck at last. It was the largest room on the station, with walls and ceiling made entirely of transparent material. Earth hung below them, filling half the sky with blue and white beauty. Stars glittered in the darkness beyond, and there, huddled against the glass ceiling at the highest point of the room, was Morath. The cub looked terrible. His silver fur was matted with sweat and fear. His injured paw left bloody prints on the metal framework he clung to. His eyes, usually a calm yellow, were wide and wild. He saw them enter and let out a growl, high-pitched but full of warning. "Everyone stop," Una commanded. "No sudden movements." The cadets froze. They stood in a line at the entrance, staring at the cub with a mixture of fear and pity. He was just a child, a scared child far from home. But he was also a predator, and his claws had gouged deep scratches into the titanium framework. "What do we do?" Himan whispered. Yun studied the situation. Morath was at the highest point of the room, just as Yunji had predicted. He had his back against the glass, giving him a clear view of anyone who approached. If they tried to corner him, he would fight. If they tried to rush him, he would fight. Every option seemed to end in violence. Behind her, she heard heavy footsteps. Krath had arrived. The ambassador pushed past the cadets, his eyes fixed on his son. "Morath," he called. "Morath, come to me. It is safe now." But the cub did not move. He looked at his father, but he did not climb down. Instead, his growling grew louder. He was too deep in his fear now. His instincts had taken over completely. "He does not recognize me," Krath whispered. His voice broke on the words. "He is so scared that he does not even recognize his own father." Una made a decision. It was probably crazy. It was probably going to get her killed. But she could not think of anything else. "Ambassador," she said, "I need you to trust me." Krath turned to look at her. His yellow eyes were wet. "What are you going to do?" "I am going to bring your son home." Una took a slow breath and stepped forward. Behind her, she heard Hemming gasp. She heard Hansel whisper a prayer. She heard Krath take a step forward, as if to stop her, then force himself to stay still. The observation deck stretched out before her, empty and quiet. Earth glowed through the transparent floor, casting strange shadows across the metal framework. At the far end of the room, Morath watched her approach. His growling never stopped. She walked slowly. Each step was careful and measured. She kept her hands at her sides, visible at all times. She made sure her movements were smooth, with no sudden changes in speed or direction. Halfway across the room, she stopped. Moreth was about 20 meters away now, still clinging to the ceiling framework. She could see him clearly. His fur was darker, where fear sweat had soaked it. His chest rose and fell with rapid breathing. His claws were fully extended, digging into the metal. "Hey there," Una said softly. "You are scared, are you not? I understand. This place is strange. Everything smells wrong. Everything sounds wrong. You just want to go home." Moreth's ears twitched. The growling paused for just a moment before starting again. Una continued speaking, keeping her voice gentle and calm. "I know you do not understand my words, but maybe you can understand my tone. I am not here to hurt you. I am not a threat. I am just a friend who wants to help." Behind her, Yunji whispered to the others. "What is she doing? She cannot reason with him. He's running on pure instinct right now." "She is not trying to reason with him," Hyman replied slowly. "She is trying to calm him, like he would calm a frightened animal." Krath stood rigid, his claws digging into his palms. "This is foolish. She is putting herself in danger for nothing. My son does not know her. He will see her as prey or as a threat. There is no other option." But he did not stop her. Some part of him, perhaps the same part that had decided to bring his son to Earth in the first place, wanted to see what would happen. Una took another step forward. Moreth's growling grew louder. His body tensed, muscles coiling like springs. He was getting ready to attack. She stopped immediately. Okay. I am sorry. That was too fast." She held up her hands, palms open. "See? No claws. No teeth. Nothing that can hurt you." Time passed slowly. Minutes felt like hours. Una stood perfectly still, waiting for Moreth to relax even slightly. She watched his body language, looking for any sign of change. Finally, she saw it. His shoulders dropped just a little. His ears moved forward instead of lying flat. He was still scared, but his fear was not growing anymore. It had reached a peak and was now slowly coming down. She took another step, then another. Then another. Moreth watched her with those wide yellow eyes. He had stopped growling, replaced by a low whimpering sound. Blood dripped from his injured paw, leaving dark spots on the framework. "Your paw hurts," Una said. "I'm sorry about that. This station has a lot of sharp edges. Not very friendly for visitors." She laughed softly. "We should probably fix that." She was close now. Close enough to see the individual hairs on his silver fur. Close enough to smell him, a musky scent mixed with fear and copper blood. Close enough that if he decided to attack, she would have no time to react. Yu thought about her life. She thought about her mother back in Bizen, who still sent her letters every week, even though video calls were easier. She thought about her little brother, who was studying medicine and would probably save more lives than she ever would. She thought about all the things she still wanted to do, all the places she still wanted to see. Then she pushed those thoughts away. They did not matter right now. The only thing that mattered was the scared cub in front of her. "I am going to do something strange now," she said. "Please do not bite me." She slowly lowered herself to the ground, first to one knee, then to both knees. Then she sat back on her heels, making herself as small as possible. She opened her arms wide, leaving her chest completely exposed. From a predator's point of view, she had just made herself the easiest target in the galaxy. Krath made a sound of disbelief. What is she doing? She is presenting herself as prey. He will kill her. But Yunji was watching with growing understanding. "No," she said slowly. "No, I think I understand. She is not presenting herself as prey. She is presenting herself as something else." "What?" "A mother." The word hung in the air. Krath looked at the xenobiologist with confusion. A mother? She's not his mother. He does not know her. But he knows the shape, Yunji explained. He knows the posture. When Velhari mothers call their cubs home after a hunt, they crouch down just like that. Arms open, body low, making themselves small and safe. It is how they signal to their children that danger has passed. Krath stared at her. Then he looked back at Yuna, seeing her with new eyes dot in the observation deck. Yuna began to speak again. But this time, she was not just speaking. She was calling. "Come here, baby Mo," she said, her voice rising and falling in a gentle rhythm. "Come here, sweetie. It is okay now. Everything is okay. Come to me." Morath's ears perked up. His head tilted to one side. "That is it," Yuna continued. "Good boy. Such a brave boy. You were so scared, but you did so good. Now come here. Come on. I have got you." Slowly, so slowly that it was hard to see at first, Morath began to move. He released his grip on the ceiling framework. He lowered himself down, one paw at a time. His movements were shaky, uncertain, but he was moving toward her. "Yes, baby. That is it. Come to me. You are safe now. I promise." The cub reached the floor. He stood there for a moment, looking at her. Every muscle in his body was still tense. One wrong move, one wrong sound, and he would attack. Yuna did not move. She kept her arms open, her posture low, her voice gentle. "Come here, baby Mo. Come on." Morath took a step forward, then another. Then he was walking slowly at first, then faster. Then he was running. Every cadet in the room held their breath. Krath took a step forward, ready to charge if his son attacked. But Morath did not attack. He crashed into Yuna's open arms like a meteor hitting an ocean. The force knocked her backward, but she wrapped her arms around him and held on tight. He was heavy, much heavier than he looked, and his claws scratched against her uniform. But he was not trying to hurt her. He was clinging to her, burying his face in her shoulder, making a sound that was somewhere between a growl and a purr. Yuna held him close. She stroked his silver fur with one hand, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath her fingers. She whispered. "You are okay. I have got you. You are safe now. Good boy. Such a good, brave boy." The observation deck was completely silent. The cadets stared with wide eyes. Krath stood frozen, unable to believe what he was seeing. His son, his precious cub, was in the arms of a human. And he was calm. He was purring. He was safe. Yuna looked up at the ambassador. There were tears on her face, though she did not know when she had started crying. "I told you I would bring him home," she said. Krath said nothing. For the first time in his long life, the great ambassador of the Velhari Dominion had no words. The purring filled the observation deck like a strange kind of music. Morath pressed closer to Yuna, his whole body relaxing in a way that seemed impossible just minutes ago. His eyes were half closed, and his injured paw hung limp at his side, forgotten in the warmth of the embrace. Yuna continued to stroke his fur, making small circles on his back. She could feel his heartbeat slowing down, returning to normal. She could feel the tension leaving his muscles one by one. He was still a predator. He could still kill her with one bite. But right now, in this moment, he was just a scared child who needed comfort. "There you go," she whispered. "See? Everything is fine. You are safe." Krath approached slowly. His footsteps echoed in the quiet room. The other Velhari in the delegation followed behind him, their yellow eyes wide with shock. They had never seen anything like this. In 10,000 years of Velhari history, no outsider had ever held one of their cubs. The ambassador stopped a few meters away. He looked at his son, wrapped in the arms of a human, and his face showed a mixture of emotions that were hard to read. Relief, confusion, something that might have been respect. "How?" he asked. His voice was rough, as if he had been screaming for hours. "How did you know he would not attack you?" Yuna looked up at him. "I did not know," she admitted. "I was scared. I thought I might die. But I also knew that he was more scared than I was. And I knew that sometimes, even the strongest creatures need someone to tell them everything is going to be okay." Krath was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that made every human in the room gasp. He knelt the great ambassador of the Volhari Dominion, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, lowered himself to one knee before a human woman. His head bowed, showing the back of his neck, the most vulnerable part of a Volhari body. "Among my people," he said slowly, "there is a concept called Velkrith. It means the one who soothes the storm. It is the highest honor a warrior can give to another. It is not about strength or skill in battle. It is about something deeper, something harder to find." He looked up at her, and for the first time, his yellow eyes held no threat, only gratitude. "You face my son, a predator's child, with no weapons and no armor. You made yourself vulnerable. You offered kindness when you had every reason to run. This is courage that my people do not understand. But today, I begin to." He placed a massive clawed hand over his heart. "Lieutenant Yuna Park, you have the respect of the Volhari Dominion. From this day forward, you are Velkrith. My people will remember your name." The other Volhari in the delegation followed their ambassador's example. One by one, they knelt. The sound of their armored knees hitting the floor echoed through the observation deck like a drumbeat. Yuna did not know what to say. She sat on the floor, still holding Morath, surrounded by kneeling aliens who had come here expecting to find prey. Instead, they had found something else. Something they could not name. Commander Taiho stepped forward. His face was pale with shock, but his voice was steady. "Ambassador Krath, please rise. There is no need for such formality." Krath stood slowly. "You are wrong, Commander. Among my people, there is always need for honor. Your lieutenant has earned it. Do not take that away from her." Morath stirred in Yuna's arms. He lifted his head, looking around with clearer eyes. The fear was fading now, replaced by curiosity. He sniffed at Yuna's face, his cold nose pressing against her cheek. She laughed. "Yes, I know I smell strange. Your father said the same thing." The cub made a soft sound, almost like a question. Then he licked her cheek with a rough tongue, leaving a trail of moisture from her jaw to her temple. "I think he likes you," Krath said. There was something in his voice that might have been amusement. "This is unusual. Volhari cubs do not bond easily with strangers. Maybe he knows I'm not a stranger anymore," Yuna said. She scratched behind Morath's ears, and he leaned into her hand, purring louder. "Maybe he knows I am a friend." The delegation stayed on the station for 3 more hours. The tour resumed, but it felt different now. The tension that had filled every interaction was gone, replaced by something warmer. The Volhari asked more questions. They showed more interest. They even laughed at a few of the cadets' jokes. A sound like boulders rolling down a mountain. Morath refused to leave Yuna's side. He followed her everywhere, his silver tail swishing. When she stopped, he sat at her feet. When she walked, he padded along beside her. The cadets kept their distance at first, but eventually, Himin got brave enough to reach out and touch his fur. "It is softer than I expected," she said. Her eyes wide. Morath sniffed her hand, then allowed her to stroke his head. Hansel joined in a moment later, and then Junji. Before long, the deadly predator cub was lying on his back, accepting belly rubs from a group of human cadets. "This is not how I expected today to go," Hansel admitted. Life rarely goes the way we expect, Una replied. The trick is to adapt. When it was time for the delegation to leave, Krath approached Una one last time. Morath was back with his handlers, but he kept looking over his shoulder at her, making small sounds of protest. He does not want to leave you, Krath said. In our culture, this creates a bond. It is called Molvik, the choosing. When a cub chooses someone outside their family, that person becomes part of the family. Una blinked. What does that mean? It means you are now Molvik Arata, my son. In human terms, you might say, honorary aunt. The words took a moment to sink in. Then Una started laughing. She could not help it. The whole situation was so strange, so impossible, that laughter was the only response that made sense. I am honored, she said, trying to compose herself. I will do my best to be a good Molvikra. Krath nodded. I know you will. He paused, then added, the Volhari Dominion will be watching humanity with great interest from now on. You have shown us something we did not expect to find. Perhaps our people are not so different after all. He turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing, Lieutenant. Yes? The next time you hold my son, please try not to get slobber on your uniform. It does not wash out easily. This time, Una was certain he was smiling. The delegation departed and the GSS horizon returned to its normal routine. But nothing felt quite the same. The cadets walked a little taller. The officers spoke a little more confidently. Something had changed in the way humans saw themselves and their place in the galaxy. That night, Una stood in the observation deck alone. Earth glowed below her, peaceful and beautiful. She thought about everything that had happened, and she thought about what it meant. Humanity was small. Humanity was weak. Humanity did not have claws or fangs, or the ability to conquer star systems. But humanity had something else. Something that even the great Volhari Dominion respected. Humanity had heart. She smiled and touched the window, her fingers leaving small prints on the glass. Not bad, she whispered to herself. Not bad at all. 3 years passed like water flowing down a river. Lieutenant Una Park became Lieutenant Commander. Una Park. She received medals and promotions and invitations to speak at academies across the solar system. Her face appeared on news broadcasts and in history books. Everyone wanted to know about the woman who had tamed a Velhari cub with nothing but kindness. She told the story so many times that it started to feel like it had happened to someone else. The fear she had felt on that observation deck, the certainty that she was about to die, those memories faded like old photographs left in the sun. What remained was something simpler. A scared child. An open embrace. A moment of connection that changed everything. The Park Protocol became official military doctrine. Soldiers were trained to approach hostile alien young with non-threatening body language and gentle vocal tones. It did not always work, but it worked often enough to save lives on both sides. Some called it revolutionary. Una called it common sense. Treat scared children with kindness, she said during one interview. That is all we did. That is all anyone should do. The alliance between humanity and the Volhari Dominion grew stronger every year. Trade routes opened. Cultural exchanges began. Velhari warriors came to Earth to study human martial arts, and human scholars went to the Velhari homeworld to learn their ancient history. What had once been two separate civilizations began to weave together into something new. And through it all, Morath kept writing. Well, not writing exactly. Velhari did not use written language the way humans did, but he recorded messages in their traditional style, combining sounds and scents and images into something that was almost like music. Every month, Una received a package from the Velhari homeworld containing his latest recording. She could not understand most of it. Velhari communication was complex and layered in ways human senses could not fully grasp. But she understood enough. She understood that he missed her. She understood that he was growing up strong and healthy. She understood that he had not forgotten the human woman who had held him when he was scared. The day came when the firewords exploded. The day came when the forgotten the human woman who had held him and human woman who was scared. The day came when the stood that he had Nansra. Galactic Assembly gathered for its annual summit. Representatives from 100 different species filled the Great Hall, a massive structure floating in neutral space between the major power centers of the galaxy. Flags and banners from countless worlds hung from the ceiling, and translator devices buzzed with 1,000 different languages. Una sat in the human delegation, wearing her dress uniform. She was there as an observer, nothing more. The real negotiations would be handled by diplomats and politicians, people who understood the subtle art of making deals. She was just a soldier, but when Ambassador Kraft took the stage, everything changed. He looked older now. His fur had gone gray at the edges, and new scars crossed his face. But his eyes were still sharp, and his voice still carried the power of a true leader. Friends, allies, and rivals, he began. I come before you today to speak of something important. I come to speak of humanity. A murmur ran through the hall. The human delegates exchanged nervous glances. They had not expected to be the topic of discussion. For 10,000 years, my people have conquered worlds, Kraft continued. We have faced armies and monsters and civilizations older than the stars. We believed we knew everything there was to know about strength and weakness, about predators and prey. We were wrong. He paused, letting his words settle. 3 years ago, I brought my son to the human station called Horizon. It was a test. I wanted to see how humans would react to one of our cubs. Would they fear him? Would they try to hurt him? Would they show us what they truly were when they thought we were not looking? The hall was silent. Everyone was listening. My son became separated from the group. He was lost and scared, trapped in a place he did not understand. His instincts took over. He became dangerous, ready to attack anyone who came near. Even I could not reach him. Even his own father was seen as a threat. Kraft looked directly at the human delegation. His yellow eyes found Una. Then a human woman did something impossible. She approached my son alone. She had no weapons, no protection. She made herself small and vulnerable. She opened her arms and called to him with the voice of a mother calling her child home. And my son, my dangerous, frightened son, went to her. He went to her and he let her hold him. The murmur in the hall grew louder. Delegates whispered to each other in shock and disbelief. I have thought about that moment every day for 3 years, Kraft said. I have tried to understand what it means. And I believe I finally do. He stepped away from the podium and walked to the edge of the stage, closer to the audience. The humans have a saying. The measure of a civilization is how it treats its most vulnerable. By that measure, humanity is the most civilized species I have ever known. They looked at our children, our precious and dangerous children, and they saw not threats, but souls in need of love. He raised his hand, claws extended, and pointed at the human delegation. We came to Earth expecting to find another species to dominate or dismiss. Instead, we found something we had never encountered in 10,000 years of conquest. We found a species that fights with ferocity, but heals with tenderness. That kills when necessary, but comforts when possible. That looks at the universe and sees not enemies to destroy, but friends who have not yet been met. Kraft placed his hand over his heart. The Velhari Dominion stands with humanity, not because they are strong, though they are. Not because they are clever, though they are that too. We stand with them because they showed us a better way to be. They showed us that courage is not always about facing enemies. Sometimes, courage is about opening your arms to someone who is scared. He turned back to the podium for his final words. Let the galaxy remember this day. Let history record that the Valhari, the greatest warriors the stars have ever known, chose to stand beside a species of soft, strange, wonderful creatures who teach their children to be kind. The applause started slowly, then built like a wave. Delegates from dozens of species rose to their feet. The sound filled the great hall, echoing off the walls and ceiling. In her seat, Yuna wiped tears from her eyes. She had not expected this. She had not expected any of this. She was just a soldier who had done what she thought was right. A shadow fell over her. She looked up to find Morath standing beside her chair. He had grown. He was huge now, nearly as large as his father. His silver fur gleamed in the lights of the great hall. His claws were long and deadly. His teeth could crush metal, but his eyes were the same. Warm and yellow and full of love. Malvigra, he said. The word was rough in his throat, shaped by vocal cords that were never meant to speak human languages. But he had practiced. He had learned. For her, "Oh, baby Mo," Yuna said, standing up. "You got big." He made that sound again, the one that was somewhere between a growl and a purr. Then he leaned down and wrapped his massive arms around her, lifting her off the ground in a hug that pressed all the air from her lungs. The delegates watching did not know what to make of it. A Valhari warrior embracing a human woman in the middle of the Galactic Assembly. It broke every rule of diplomacy and protocol, but it did not matter. Rules were made by people, and people could choose to break them when something more important came along. Yuna hugged him back as best she could. Her arms barely reached around his massive body, but she held on tight. "I missed you too," she whispered. "Some victories, after all, are won with open arms." Later that night, after the summit had ended and the delegates had gone home, Yuna stood on an observation platform looking out at the stars. Morath stood beside her, his great head resting on her shoulder like he used to do when he was small. "You know," she said, "when I was a little girl, I used to dream about going to space. I dreamed about meeting aliens and having adventures and doing something important. But I never imagined anything like this." Morath made a questioning sound. "I never imagined that the most important thing I would ever do was give a hug to a scared kid." She laughed softly. "Funny how life works out." The stars glittered in the darkness, cold and distant and beautiful. Somewhere out there, 100 species were thinking about what had happened today. They were thinking about humanity and kindness and what it meant to be truly civilized. And somewhere on Earth, in a small apartment in Bizon, an old woman was watching the news and crying with pride. Her daughter had done something wonderful. Yuna touched the window, just like she had done 3 years ago on the GSS horizon. "Thank you," she whispered to the stars. "Thank you for giving me the chance to make a difference." Morath purred against her shoulder. Outside, the universe continued its endless dance, filled with wonders and horrors and everything in between. But in that moment, standing on an observation platform in the middle of neutral space, Yuna Park felt at peace. Some stories end with battles won and enemies defeated. This story ends with a woman and an alien standing side by side, looking at the stars, connected by something stronger than blood or treaty or shared history. This story ends with love, and really, what better ending could there be?